Joining us now for more on this, we have Scott Bauer. He's the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. And Scott, when you take a look at the price of oil today, not much reaction in regards to those airstrikes, up only just around 0.1%. Why do you think that is?
You know, it's actually very surprising that it's not up more, but I think that what it tells you is maybe the oil surge that we've seen recently got a little bit ahead of itself. Typically, when we've seen a big geopolitical event like this, we have seen a nice pop in oil, which we didn't see today. So, it's been on a big rise. Last week's stock numbers were well below what was expected. A drawdown of 5 million barrels. So that really helped the price of oil, but maybe it just got a little bit ahead of itself here.
Scott, I was going through some of the recent notes. Goldman, JP Morgan, both increasing their target on oil when we look ahead to 2020. Where do you see oil trading? Because right now we have crude still holding above that $60 a barrel mark.
Barring any further geopolitical events, further unrest in the Middle East, I actually think that we've come to an area where there's a stall, there's a rest, and I think that below 60 is very likely here. Yes, last week's numbers, the inventory numbers were not what analysts had expected, and up until then, we've actually seen bigger and bigger builds. Listen, shale production is not going down anytime soon. We are ramping it up. And still, until things are really settled between the U.S. and China, which has also given oil a nice boost over the last few weeks, until that phase one part is really settled and then we know what's going beyond, I still think there's massive headwinds in the oil space.
Well, Scott, when we talk about the fact that we're seeing production ramp up, especially here in the U.S., what are the odds, do you think, that we'll have some sort of supply glut next year?
I think they're very high, even with some sort of resolution between the U.S. and China. I think there's no doubt we're going to have a supply glut. It's really just a matter, to me, of is there going to come a point where we're producing too much oil, where we start to see some pullbacks? We've already seen what OPEC is doing and what they're hopefully staying to in terms of their cutbacks to June or maybe even further on. So we're going to get to the point here where there's going to be some balance here, but really the oversupply at this point is far exceeding the demand.
Scott, is there any geopolitical risk or any risk out there when it comes to oil that we haven't talked about yet that you have your eye on going into the new year?
I think the unrest still coming out of Venezuela can pop up at any point. I mean, that's been relatively calm of late. But any escalation that we may see in the Middle East or with Iran, if this really escalates and then, they start to close down some pipelines or start to close down some passageways, that could be the big point that maybe makes oil get to that 65 number or so. But barring that, I really see some major headwinds.
Scott, it's basically been a lost decade when it comes to energy. It's been the worst performing sector so far of the last 10 years. Do you see any opportunity there? Do you think it's going to change at all?
I think the opportunity is there because the energy space and many of the big producers and the big global corporations, they've been beaten down so badly. So I think that the opportunity is there for probably minimal downside risk. I'm not saying any big explosiveness to the upside, but I think downside risk is fairly minimal.
All right, Scott Bauer, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.